Hi, I'm Walt and this is Delta Astrophotography, and I apologize about the noisy cicadas outside. But anyway, in this video, we're going to do something a little different. I reached out to my Instagram followers and I asked them to ask me questions about Astro and personal, but mainly Astro. And so I'm going to answer those questions in today's video. Now, what I expected were people to ask me technical questions, what should they buy? And I did get a few of those questions, but I really got a lot of questions about my opinions on things, my personal experience, and just a few fun personal ones. So we're going to start out with the more technical stuff. We'll move into the more experience and opinion-based questions, and then we'll end with the really personal stuff. All right, so let's just jump into it. First question, full frame versus crop sensor, advantages and disadvantages of each over the other. I'll start out by saying it just depends on what you are going to be using them for. If you're a landscape photographer, a nightscape photographer, then I'd probably suggest a full frame. Full frame cameras have larger sensors, they have larger pixels, so they let in more light, so they're less noisy, but more importantly, that larger sensor gives you a wider field of view. That means you can expose longer on the stars before they start to trail. You know, a 24mm lens, you can get maybe about 15 seconds before the stars start to trail, and 24mm is my personal favorite for nightscapes. A crop sensor, on the other hand, is going to have a smaller sensor, smaller pixels, therefore it lets in a little less light, so they're going to be noisier. And of course, the smaller sensor gives you a smaller field of view, so therefore you have less time to expose before the stars start to trail. You know, a lot of people say that a crop sensor makes it more zoomed in. A lot of people don't like that term. They say it's not actually zoomed in, it's just a smaller field of view, but it's the same thing, really. Like a 24mm on a full frame camera is 24mm. You put that same lens on a crop sensor camera, now your field of view is more like 40mm, technically 38, but yeah, it's something like 40mm. That's a huge jump. You go from being able to expose for about 10 to 15 seconds on a full frame to about 5 to 10 seconds on a crop sensor camera, and that's a huge thing to think about. That's why I sold my first astrophotography camera, which was a Canon T5i crop sensor camera, and got a 6D instead. But now let's say you want to do deep sky astrophotography and you've got this 275mm telescope and you're wanting to shoot Andromeda. Well, on that full frame camera, Andromeda is going to look pretty small at 275mm. You add that same telescope to a crop sensor camera. That 275mm telescope is now going to look more like a 440mm telescope. That's a huge difference, and Andromeda is going to fill the frame quite nicely. And astrophotographers do like more reach, and that's what crop sensor cameras give you. And you're not losing resolution. They have just as many pixels as the full frame camera. It's just that they're smaller, so they're not letting as much light, so it's a little noisier, but we don't have to worry about noise these days with all the stacking and AI noise reduction. Noise is just not a problem anymore. So deep sky, you're much better suited with a crop sensor camera. I mean, there are times where I have had to reach for the full frame when I was a little too zoomed in, like with the Witch Head Nebula, or when I'm trying to shoot the moon through a big 11-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope. But I would say I shoot about 90% of all my deep sky images with a crop sensor camera, and nearly all my Milky Way or just nightscape images with a full frame camera, because I just like the wider, bigger field of view. How can I shoot the annular solar eclipse with a subject like a rock formation? That's a very unique idea you have there. Okay, well, you're gonna have to make friends with Photoshop. Here's a picture I took of the sun, and see how black that sky is? You're not just going to be able to blend your foreground and your sky background. It's not going to work. You're going to have to cut the sun out and paste it onto the foreground. I'm not quite sure how you would do that, but it is definitely worth trying to figure out, I think. And I also suggest having a separate camera on a separate tripod shooting your foreground, because you're not going to want to miss that weird light that comes with a solar eclipse. You know what I'm talking about when it's almost full or full. I don't think this is going to be a total eclipse, but when it's almost full, everything just looks weird. You want to capture that lighting. It's so unique. And I also suggest, since the sun's going to be pretty high, setting your tripod for your foreground down pretty low and having it kind of aim up, so you really look like you're kind of looking up over the rock at the sun. I think that would be a very cool way to do that. If you actually do pull this off, please tag me on Instagram. I have to see this. What's the best stacking software? Well, I can't tell you which one gives the best results, but I will say my personal favorite and always go to is Deep Sky Stacker. Absolutely, it is just so easy, intuitive. You just add your lights, your darks, your flats, your bias, hit check all, hit registered check pictures, and you're ready to go. It might give you some recommendations that you can just click, but yeah, you're ready to go. That's it. And it gives wonderful results. You can even calibrate the background color so it won't turn out green or really red if you're using a Astro modified camera. Now, Serial could be even easier if you just organize all your lights, darks, and all that stuff in very specific ways, very specific folders, and then point Serial to those folders and then run a script. It'll do all that for you with a lot less clicking around. See, the thing is, it doesn't have quite as much control when you do it that way. Now, Serial does have manual control as well, but it's very advanced, very complicated, and I still have not quite figured it all out yet. I'm still going through there going, what does this do? Ugh. Same with stacking in PixInsight. What is it called? Weighted batch pre-processing or some crap like that. Yeah, it's very advanced. I have not figured out what all the features are yet. And I mean, why should I when I have something so easy like Deep Sky Stacker? I will eventually get there though, and maybe I might change my mind, but for now, no. And honorable mention goes to Sequator or Secretor or whatever it's called. If you're doing Milky Way nightscape stacking, it is absolutely wonderful because you can actually show it where the sky is, mask out the sky, so it'll make up for the movement of the stars while leaving the ground alone. And that's a really great feature. Plus, it just stacks really fast, a lot faster than all the other ones. I could stack, 20 minutes worth of Milky Way data in 20 seconds. Where do you buy your star trackers from? I'm a beginner, but I would like to start with a cheap one. Well, I got my first star tracker, the Ioptron SkyGuider Pro, for about $400 from High Point Scientific. Actually, it might have even been closer to $300 back then. This was early pandemic, early 2020. Now, if you're wanting a cheap one, the cheapest one I can think of off the top of my head is a Move Shoot Move that you can get at moveshootmove.com. Now, I personally don't have any experience with a Move Shoot Move, so I really can't talk about it, which also answers another question. I think somebody asked, what's the biggest lens that I put on a Move Shoot Move? Well, I can't answer that right now, but I am working on an arrangement where I'm going to get a Move Shoot Move, hopefully before too long, temporarily anyway, so I can use it, try it out, review it, let you guys know what I think. And so, hey, you got something to look forward to there. While I really can't say too much about the Move Shoot Move, I do still recommend maybe you spend a few extra $100, the extra $200 or so, and get an Ioptron SkyGuider Pro or a Skywatcher Star Adventurer, because those have a payload capacity of about 11 pounds as opposed to the Move Shoot Moves like 6. So you're gonna keep it a lot longer and it'll grow with you, and you can use bigger lenses and you can auto guide with it. But that's just my personal opinion. You can get those from High Point Scientific, Agena Astro, B&H Photo. Check them out for sure. Here's a really good question, and I'm going to kind of tie it into another question here in a few minutes. But is it worth all the expense and time to take a photo that has already been taken by 1,000 others? First of all, let me say, nightscape photographs are all very unique to the individual taking them. They're the most artistic, and they're one of the few forms of astrophotography that you can actually make a decent amount of money on by selling prints, because it's very unique to the photographer. But I'm gonna go ahead and assume that you're talking about deep sky astrophotography. And I've gotta say, most people only know about nebulas and galaxies from reading about them in books, textbooks, seeing them in movies. But when you get out there and you set up and you focus and you balance and you polar align and you take this really long 3-minute exposure, and suddenly a galaxy pops up on the back of your screen. I don't care if you're an atheist, if you're religious, this is a deeply profound spiritual experience the first time you do it, and quite honestly, it never gets old. You're seeing things that nobody on this earth have ever seen. And that kind of ties into another question somebody asked me. How do you feel when you see the Milky Way pop up on the back of your camera screen? My friend Greg described it as going home. I don't want to say you feel small and insignificant. You just feel a sense of awe and wonder. You're seeing back in time. You're seeing building blocks of the universe. You're seeing things that are so incredibly far away. And it's just, there's no words to really describe it. That feeling is so wonderful, and it's worth taking it even if you've seen it a million times in other people's photographs. But then after you do it for a while, you get to experiment with different focal lengths, different filters. You get to just aim up at random parts of the sky and say, oh, let's see what the gas and dust up here look like, maybe try to get multiple targets in one frame, maybe zoom in a little extra on one frame. There's endless possibilities, and it might seem crazy at first to spend $5,000 to take a photograph that you can just go look at, in National Geographic or something, but no, it is absolutely worth every bit of money and every bit of time you put into it. Trust me. Here's one that I got asked a few times, and it's probably going to have the longest answer. So here we go. What made you get into Astro? Where to begin? All right, we're gonna start somewhere around 2011, 12. I don't know the exact year, but it started when my friend Katie and I decided to go out in the country one night and just do a little stargazing. And she brought her Canon camera with her. And she got a picture of me that night, just standing out in the country looking up. And it's just a silhouette of me with stars in the background. I had no idea a regular Canon camera could capture stars like that. And a little light bulb kind of came on. It lived in the back of my brain for a while, but it was always there. So let's go ahead and fast forward to 2016. This is the year that I went to Japan and the Grand Canyon for my first time, and I was just taking all my photos with my smartphone, and they just were not doing it justice. And I started thinking to myself, I need a real camera. I want to share what I'm doing with the world. Fast forward to December of that year, I moved to this house that I'm living in now, and it's kind of out in the country. This is a Bortle 3 area. And it was so dark that when I would get out of my car and try to walk to the driveway, but the street light wouldn't work in them. When I got out of the car and tried to walk to up the driveway to my door, I couldn't see the door. I had to have a flashlight to get to my door from my car. And I could look up and see the Milky Way, the winter Milky Way, and all the winter constellations. And it was hard to pick out some of these constellations because you could just see stars between stars between stars. And I'm already kind of a space nerd. My dog's name is Carl Sagan. I named him Carl Sagan like 10 years ago. So I just felt that was really fascinating. And I started getting to where I wanted to share this with the world because nobody gets to see skies like this all the time. I'm not gonna say nobody, but it's not very often that people get to see skies like this because everybody lives in a town or a city. And that photo that I saw that Katie took back in 2012, 11, whatever, started coming to the front of my mind, and I started thinking about it more often. Let's fast forward to around July of 2016. My band is about to go on a little tour up to Vermont, and I'm thinking to myself, travel, I want to do travel photography, and this might be the time to actually finally try out some star photography. I just knew that this was gonna happen. It had to happen. So I got on Facebook and just asked around, hey, does anybody have a camera I can borrow? And my friend Hillary reached out and said, sure, take my camera, just don't break it. And so that was it. I spent every last minute of that trip where I wasn't driving, reading the book, DSLR Settings for Dummies. And I was just constantly taking pictures, and it just came to a big climax when one night in Greensboro, Vermont, which is a very dark area, it's probably like a Bortle 2, outside, staring up at the Milky Way with my camera, surrounded by my bandmates and my new friends. And I take that very first Milky Way photo, and let me just say that changed my life forever. 2 months later, I bought my first camera. I got a Rokinon 14mm lens, and every single night it was clear I was out shooting, whether the moon was out or not. Let's fast forward to 2020, during the pandemic. I used my stimulus money to buy my first star tracker. And that was a pretty rough year for a lot of us. By October, I was especially feeling down. My band wasn't playing. I had to get a job as a custodian to make ends meet. I had recently broken up with a girl. Things were going bad. The Milky Way season had ended, and so the thing that was making me happy throughout a lot of this was gone. And so I decided to try something new, and I ordered a 75 to 300mm kit lens, put that on my camera, put my camera on the star tracker, and once again, talking about seeing something on the back of your camera for the first time, there are no words to describe how that feels, looking at something 2.5 million light years away right there on the back of your camera. And I had previously attempted to make YouTube videos before, and it just wasn't going well, but after seeing that, I knew this is what I had to do. I wanted to document my journey because I knew I was going down the rabbit hole. It was over. And so I made my very first YouTube video right after that on how to photograph the Andromeda Galaxy. And that was only my second ever attempt at deep sky astrophotography. I had absolutely no idea, if you go back and watch that video, no idea what I was doing. But that was the start of a very long journey that I've been happy to be going on and happy to be bringing you along on. Thank you very much for coming along. Tips for more advanced astrophotographers. I don't know if you are saying you want a tip now or if I should start including more of those tips in my future videos, but we'll do both. For now, here's one that really plagued me over the past few nights. Don't obsess over your guiding numbers. Like, I understand it's good to have your total guiding error below 1 arc second, but if it kind of peaks up there over that, that's fine. Like, I spent till 3 o'clock in the morning the other night trying to get my guiding numbers really, really low. And I wasted the whole night. And I was messing with my guiding settings, and I was making things worse and then better and then worse and then better. I tried it again the next night, and yeah, it was, for the most part, below 1 arc second, but occasionally it wasn't. And it was fine. The stars were round the entire time, and I was freaking out the night before for no reason. And so yeah, just don't obsess over your guide graph and your guide numbers, please. As far as future tips, yeah, the Milky Way season's coming to an end. We've got our fall and winter targets coming up, and they're a little more advanced than Milky Way stuff, so there is going to be some more advanced stuff coming soon. A story about a fail you did in the field when you shot the sky that you can laugh about it now. Okay, this literally does take place in a field, and it may not seem like that big a deal to you, but it was pretty nuts to me. So this is kind of in the beginning when I'm getting into Milky Way nightscapes. I've just got the one lens, I don't have the star tracker, and I'm trying to learn how to make my foregrounds brighter. So I get this idea, I'm gonna shoot the sky early in the night, and then I'm gonna let the moon come up and illuminate the foreground. The moon's supposed to be like one of the best soft lights, so I was gonna let the moon come up, illuminate the foreground, and take that picture and then blend the two. So what I did, I went out into the middle of the road, way down a dirt road, and I set up and I shot the sky, and then I left the camera out there and went and sat in my car, and I was just gonna sit and watch the moon rise and stargaze until I felt like the moon was casting enough light to light up my foreground. But what actually happened was I passed out in my car. Guys, I don't know if this happens to you when you're on vacation or on a camping trip. Sometimes you wake up and you don't know where you are. Well, this happened out there. What happened was I woke up in my car and I look around and I don't know where the hell I am. I am in a field in the pitch black darkness with amnesia. I have absolutely no memory of where I was. I had no clue where I was. And I panicked, sheer freaking terror. I'm like fumbling for my phone. Oh my God, where am I? Did I have an accident? Did I somehow ingest some kind of drug? Did I black out? Did I get kidnapped? Where on earth am I? And it felt like this went on for an hour. But luckily, in reality, it was only about 30 seconds. I looked out the window and was just looking around, and I finally see, illuminated in the moonlight, because the moon was pretty high now, my camera on my tripod, and it all came back. I was like, oh my God, I'm out here shooting and I fell asleep. And so, yeah, I went and tried to take that foreground, but I was so groggy, so tired. Things just weren't clicking, things weren't making sense. So I just put the lens cap back on the front of the camera, didn't even take it off the tripod, just threw everything in the back of the car, went home and went to bed. That was a pretty fun fail. How do you cope with a year of cloud cover? All clear skies have been Sunday through Thursday. I kind of feel you, but in the reverse. See, I'm a musician for a living, and it seems like most of the clear skies have been on nights on the weekends when I've been gigging. I'll be driving home late night from a gig and look up and go, damn it. Of course I had to work tonight, but it's been a hard year, and I've had to do traveling to cope with it. I've had to decide to go where the clear skies are. And when I say clear, I don't mean light pollution, I mean no clouds. I am single, no kids, so I have no problem just jumping up and going places because I have nobody to take care of but myself and my dog. Here's a similar one, I like this. On a scale of 1 to roar, how bad are cloudy nights for you? Actually, in the past 2 weeks, I've had clear skies every single night. Have I gotten some great shots? No. Of course, I had to go out and try something new instead of something familiar, and I just kind of sucked at it. That's usually what happens when you try new things. And I might have gotten some good stuff out of the lobster claw and bubble nebula region. Still not my favorite photo. And then I tried triangulum, and that was a complete and total fail. But I did manage to capture 4 more hours on my 6 or 7 hours of Andromeda from last year and added that. And I'm currently processing that. And I think that is actually turning out really well. It's just that Andromeda is really hard to process. Hope you're doing well. What is your ultimate favorite Astro trip you've ever taken? I'm doing fine, thanks. Okay, so I've gone on some good ones, like several trips up to Vermont now with my band Blackwater Trio and taken all kinds of cool Astro photos up there. I went to Death Valley and Area 51 with Teresa, and recently the Valley of Dreams with Alana. Those were all great trips. But the one that's always gonna stand out the most is the trip that I took in May. It was my solo trip. And what really made that trip stand out, well, A, I was solo, and I wasn't staying in hotels or anything. I was tent camping the entire time. And B, I didn't know where I was going. I did not plan this trip out at all, and that was kind of the goal. It was to find clear skies. If you haven't seen this video, check it out in the description below. But I would just open up a cloud map every day and search for where in the United States I could find cloudless skies, and it took me almost to the California border. I was pulling 13-hour-a-day drives, and my heart was pounding on that first day. I was so nervous because I was like, I don't know where I'm gonna lay my head tonight. I don't know if I'm going to be okay staying out where I'm staying. I'm staying out in a tent in God knows where. I don't know if I'll actually find clear skies or not. I mean, I might not. I might get out west and run out of money because gas prices zoom up. You know, I don't have a lot of money to go on these trips. I mean, I'm usually flying by the seat of my pants when I do this stuff. But by day 3, I had really just kind of slipped into that lifestyle, and it started to feel good, and that kind of changed my life. Like, I really would like to do that full time if I could. I just remember sitting at the top of Muley Point and just looking out over Monument Valley, just me and my dog and my tent, and that was one of the most beautiful feelings I've ever felt. Just out there alone, hardly any phone service, no real plan, no clue where I was gonna be next, and loving every second of it. Yeah, that's definitely my favorite trip by far. Can you see Andromeda from Earth? Yes, you can, and I have seen it. Now, you do have to be in a very dark location to see it because unlike stars and planets, it's not a little pinpoint of light. It is a smudge. Basically, you're only seeing the core, and that's all it looks like is a little smudge up there, so it's hard to see. I can kind of compare it to when I was trying to look at the comet Neowise back in 2020, and a lot of people couldn't see it at all. I could see it a little bit, but you really had to focus your eyes very hard, and you could see this faint smudge. Anna Carson, you would ask this. Most people ask, what's your favorite planet? But she goes, what is your least favorite planet? That's not something you think about very often. Like, everybody has their favorite planet, Neptune, but least favorite. So I'm gonna try to answer this in 2 ways because I don't have a planet I necessarily dislike. The first way I'll answer this is, what planet do I really think about the least? And that would be Uranus. The only time I ever really think about that planet is when it's in a butt joke. All the rest I can either see with my naked eyes, and of course I just think Neptune is fascinating. I could also answer it this way. If I had a choice to visit any one of the planets or their moons, because you can't really land on a gas giant, which would be the one I would want to visit the least? And that is most definitely the planet Venus. Screw Venus, okay? Its atmosphere is extremely dense. It's like being like, what did I read once? 0.6 miles under the ocean. It will crush you. And that atmosphere is, a lot of it is carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas. So we're talking about a huge greenhouse effect with the temperatures being 900 degrees Fahrenheit, which is hot enough to melt lead. And let's not forget about the clouds of sulfur, the 400-mile-an-hour winds, and the volcanoes. Yeah, you can have Venus. I mean, like, it's hotter than Mercury, and Mercury is the closest planet to the sun. It's ridiculous. If I could ever try to picture what hell is like, I think it's the surface of Venus. Bucket list location? Do you have a unicorn composition you're trying to shoot? Not sure if I've heard the term unicorn composition, but bucket list? Yes. Absolutely, that's Devil's Tower, Wyoming, and it's because, growing up, my favorite movie was Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and it still kind of is, and I have to get out to Devil's Tower and shoot the night sky and just kind of feel like I'm in the moment in that movie. When I do go out there and shoot, promise you there will be a video about that. What are your thoughts on smart telescopes like Stellina and Dwarf 2 and their place in Astro? For anybody who doesn't know what this person's talking about, these are these little like self-contained astrophotography units that pretty much do it all for you. You don't have to polar align them, they'll slew to your target, they will take photographs of it all night and stack the images for you. They've got built-in filters or come with filters. I mean, they're great little all-in-one units, and I think they're wonderful and make astrophotography very accessible for people who don't feel like going outside and setting up a tripod, a tracking mount, counterweights, balance, polar align, focus, you know, dealing with the outside elements for long periods of time, taking calibration frames, all that good stuff, you know. Some people like that, some people don't. And I just think it's a great option, and if people like that and they want to upgrade and get into the more technical side of things where you're picking your telescopes and your guide scopes, great, but I think it's a great way to get new people into the hobby. Do you compose and play your YouTube music yourself? And what instruments do you play? Sadly, for the most part, I don't. The only music by me you'll probably hear in my videos is that really cheesy TV show themed intro on a lot of my videos. I did compose that. I actually composed that for some friends and a video they were making, but they're not really doing that anymore, so I took it back and started using it in my YouTube videos. And it's supposed to kind of reflect how silly some of my videos can be. Besides that, I did a video called like how to photograph the Rodin Nebula or something like that. And towards the end, I composed some music that is supposed to sound like Akira Ifukube music, who's the composer for a lot of the old classic Godzilla movies and Rodin and all that stuff. And so I didn't want to get, you know, my video taken down for putting up Akira Ifukube music. And so I just composed my own. You know, I think one of the main reasons I don't put a lot of my music in there because I just don't think the music that I write fits. I kind of like the more synthy electronic stuff, not the dancey stuff, you know, like some people put in the ends of their videos. But I kind of like more chill, mellow electronic music. I just don't have much experience doing that. I'm a guitar player, and primarily. I also play keyboard, piano, bass, but I play guitar in like 6 bands or more, and I play bass in a few bands. And occasionally I'll bring out the keyboard, but I'm a little too lazy to drag all that stuff out. If I ever could do YouTube full time, then and you know, maybe stop doing some of the gigs that I don't want to do and some of the jobs I don't want to do, then maybe I could find a little more time to start learning how to compose the music that I think fits my videos best. But for now, I just use mainly Artlist. Favorite thing aside from astrophotography? That is most definitely traveling, and I think equal to it, playing music with my friends. Those are my favorite things to do in the whole world. And you know, a close third would be, you know, just going for walks with my dog. Nothing is more relaxing to me than that. We want a pic of Pluto. Well, you're not getting one. What's a historical event, place you wish you could time travel to witness firsthand? No doubt about it. It'd definitely be to see the dinosaurs. When will you start a giveaway? All right. So first of all, there are a lot of people out there that actually search YouTube for giveaways, and they'll subscribe to those channels just for that. And I just think that's dishonest, and I just don't want that to be a part of my channel. But if you want a more brutally honest answer, y'all, I'm a musician for a living, and that means I'm broke. Now, I'm not always broke, but this year has been one of my worst years. It's probably been the worst year since lockdown in 2020. And so the only thing that I'm gonna be giving away is treats to my dog. All right, that's about all of the questions. I can't believe I actually made it through all of that. There were a few I couldn't answer because they were about equipment I don't own. Sorry about that. Hopefully I can get around to getting some of that and trying it out one day. But yeah, I'd love to do like a live Q&A with you guys one day, but at the moment I'm living out in the country and I just don't have very good internet service. I have a very slow upload speed, so going live just does not work for me. Maybe one day, maybe I could get an office in town, or maybe just use a friend's house or my mother's house or something for an afternoon. Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, guys, if you enjoyed this, let me know in the comments below or leave me a like. And super likes always help the channel as well. And yeah, if you're wanting to see more of this and more of me out in the field shooting and any kind of tutorials, definitely subscribe because I can't wait to see you in the next one. As always, everybody, stay spacey, clear skies, good night.